Hello tarot readers, today I'm going to do a video which is my top 10 favourite tarot decks out of my collection. This was a challenge for me that I was given on my Spanish YouTube channel, and to be honest it's been really hard to do because I've got so many decks and I love them all so very much, and it was a little bit like selfish choice, you know, which deck do I love the most? Really hard decision, but finally I've narrowed it down to my top 10 favourite decks. So, deck number 10 is a little bit of a cheat because I'm going to do a draw. I've got Ciro Marchetti's Gilded Tarot, which I absolutely love all of Ciro's decks. I'm going to say this every time I mention him in all my videos. Please be careful if you're going to buy one of Ciro Marchetti's decks, because he's got a lot of decks, but there's a lot of pirate decks out. He's just being hammered by pirates at the moment, and it's not fair. So this has to be up with my number 10. You know, my list has been really hard. I would have thought this would have been a lot earlier and a number a lot lower, but still being out of the hundreds of decks that I've got, being number 10 is a good place to be. It's also drawing, so there's a bit of a cheat going on here. I'm drawing it with the Mythic Tarot, and I absolutely love the Mythic Tarot also, and I just think it deserves the place. And because I couldn't do 11 decks, it was 10 decks, I'm going to just shove it in at number 10 also. It's based on Greek mythology. It's a beautiful deck of cards if you like Greek mythology, and it was made at a time where theme decks wasn't that popular as they are today. Now you can get a theme deck with anything, but back then, you know, to have a deck of cards that was all based on, you know, Greek mythology, etc. Amazing, beautiful deck. And I know so many tarot readers that in its day actually learnt the tarot with this deck of cards. It came with a workbook. At least one of the editions came with a workbook, so loads of people learnt tarot with this deck of cards. Definitely worth a mention. So my number 10 is a draw with the Mythic Tarot and the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. Number 9 on my list, and you know, I've surprised myself a little bit with this list as well, because number 9 on the list is the Morgan Greene Tarot. Now, I wasn't expecting to put Morgan Greene in this list if you would have asked me, but when I was going through my tarot collection and giving my honest opinion on the cards and when I use the cards and when I need the cards and what cards are very important to me, this had to be on the list because the Morgan Greene Tarot, this is a US Games version, and the quality is fantastic as always with US Games. Brilliant quality of cardstock. But this deck of cards by Greer and Lloyd Morgan, they're just very simple, and I think that's why it's on my list. That's the Hermit card, the Judgment card. Some of the cards are very dark, and you know, that can be a little bit bothersome, but other times I just need a simple deck. I need a kind of deck that will just give me direct answers. It's wonderful having decks that are very inspiring, but it's also good sometimes just to have simple basic decks that will tell it as it is. And I found for me the Morgan Greene deck is that deck. It's that deck of cards that, you know, it doesn't actually open any inspirational doors and take me on to another level, but it gives me what it says on the packet. It's a tarot deck, and it gives me that tarot inspiration, and I just love it. I just love this deck of cards. I think it's really simple, really cute, really nice, and very, when I'm saturated with so much inspirational decks, this is kind of my go-to deck to come down. So really great deck for number 9, the Morgan Greene Tarot. Deck number 8 really surprised me. I did not expect this to be on my list of favourite decks. It's quite a new deck for me, and it's the Everyday Witch Tarot, and it's illustrated by Elizabeth Alba, and Deborah Blake is the author behind this deck. Now, this deck is really modern. You've got these kind of fun, happy, witchy, and cats and broomsticks on the back. But the deck itself, when I first saw it, I was like, there's a lot of cats on this. It's a bit, you know, witchified, and I'm not sure if I like this deck. The Hermit card, a beautiful deck of cards, and I'm surprised at how much this deck has inspired me over, you know, over the last few months since I've used it. It's just excuse me, it's just been really inspiring, and it kind of tells me stuff that not only the basic meaning of the card, the 10 of Swords, not only the basic meaning of the tarot, but it just opens that door and really inspires me, and it's been spot on every time. I'm so impressed with this deck. I never would have thought I would have liked this kind of deck with all these cats, and I mean, I do like cats, but I just didn't think it would be my thing, and it's turned out to be a deck that not only is very inspirational, I love the images, and it just hits the nail every single time. So it had to be in my top 10, and I'm so pleased I've got this deck. So the Everyday Witch Tarot is definitely a deck that I've fallen in love with, and considering it's one of my most recent decks and it's made it into the top 10 out of so many tarot decks that I've got, just shows how good this deck really is. My next deck is the Medieval Scapini deck by Luci Scapini, an amazing tarot deck, and had to be in my top 10. It's not really your traditional tarot, that's the Death card. But it kind of feels traditional because, you know, Luci Scapini worked on the Visconti Tarot, so he really understands about old decks, and this deck looks very, very old and very worldly, and at the same time, that's a Tower card. At the same time, it's really modern, and there's lots of modern little things in there. I've done a review on this deck, and you can find it on my YouTube channel, the Ten of Swords. This is, you know, you can't follow the traditional way with this deck because Luci Scapini's kind of done what he wanted with the deck, but it works. It just really works. On those days when you want something different, this is that deck. The High Priestess. Beautiful. I love that card. It is so worth. It's so beautiful. The Judgment card. An amazing deck of cards, and yeah, the Scapini deck is definitely on my list of the best tarot decks that I've got, for sure. The next on my list is number 6 is, of course, your Visconti Tarot. Now, your old Visconti Tarot, Visconti decks is about 15 decks that are called Visconti Tarot because the whole decks have never been found, but they've kind of found parts of 15 different decks of cards, all done more or less in the same place in Italy, and they call them the Visconti Tarot. And this is a copy from Lo Scarabaio, and I absolutely love this deck of cards. It's very old. It's one of the first decks of cards ever. All the Viscontis are kind of known in history as the first decks of cards that we've got, and I love every deck of Visconti that I've got. And sometimes I just want to go back to basics, back to just the original tarot, without so much modern stuff. And sometimes I want the modern stuff, so it depends on what mood I'm in. With the Visconti Tarot, you don't get images on the pip cards. You just get, like, this is the 9 of coins. You just get 9 coins. You don't get images. You don't get scenes going on in the pip cards. But that's fair enough. The Lovers card, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck of cards, absolutely gorgeous, and it's a part of history, and I think, you know, it's a beautiful deck to work with. But with the Visconti, I've got several Visconti decks, and this is my favourite. This is from Mancello in Milan, and this is a beautiful handmade deck. Look at this deck of amazing cards. Look at them. I don't actually use this deck. I've just got it in my collection because I'm too scared of using it in case I kind of break it or anything. Especially me. I'm so rough with all my cards. But I absolutely love this deck. So they would come under my number 6 in my favourite decks of cards. Number 5 is another deck that's totally blown me away, and that's a Lightseers Tarot. This is a modern deck of cards, not very old. I've only had it recently, and since I've had it, it has been amazing. I've worked with this deck so much, and it tells me things that I never thought that I would see through a deck, maybe through your intuition, definitely not through the basic meanings, but this deck has really highlighted certain things in a reading that I absolutely love. The Two of Cups. I love the colours. They're inspiring. They're modern at the same time. They follow the traditional. You can tell that's a Two of Wands, even though it's a more modern approach. You can see that being the Three of Cups, the Three Girls, even though it is a little bit more spiritual, a bit more cosmical, and there's a lot of cosmic symbols in this deck. There's a lot of symbols in this deck, you know, and it touches things like chakras, like energy fields, auras, astrology, the cosmics, spiritual connections. It's just an amazing deck of cards, and the colours inspire me. That's the Three of Swords. If you haven't got this deck, the Ten of Swords, that's my least favourite card, but still I do love this deck anyway. I have got an opinion of this deck, a review on it. Chris-Anne is the author of this deck, it's the artist of this deck, and it's done by Hay House now. A brilliant deck. You really need this in your collection. You need to try it out because it I'm surprised it doesn't just work on its own. It's that connected. Just make sure if you do buy the deck, make sure it's got the name Chris-Anne on the top. Make sure the box is the open and closed box and not one that goes like that, because again, there's a lot of pirates out there at the moment, and they're taking decks like this poor lady's deck and they're copying it and they're giving it out for a lot cheaper, and obviously she's losing out, or Hay House is losing out, but the author ultimately would always lose out, and you'll lose out because it's a copied deck. It's going to have negative energy, and apart from that, it's going to be crap. The quality is not going to be as good as Hay House, that's for sure. So just make sure at the top it's got her name, Chris-Anne, and the box open and closes. The cards should be the same size as the actual box. They just slot in nicely, and it comes with this amazing book, which is really a good book that is more or less the same size as the cards. Anything that doesn't look like that, just be very wary of. And if in doubt, contact Hay House or come buy it directly from them. The next deck of cards on my list is the Marseillaise deck. Of course, you can't really have a top 10 without having Marseillaise in there. This is a new Marseillaise from Los Caraballo. Basically, La Marseillaise Tarot is a very old tarot deck, and there's several decks of Marseillaise, and they was all done in the town of France called Marseillaise. So all the decks that was done in that era, in that area of France, are now called the Marseillaise decks. And you'll find a little bit like the Visconti, they've got only pip cards for minors. The minors are only pip cards. There's no images on them at all, except for, you know, 3 cups, one coin, etc. So, but the majors, of course, you've got your Wheel of Fortune, you've got images on the majors. So this would be like the 7 of Swords, and you've just got 7 swords. And this would be the Six of Wands, and you just have 6 wands. So although a lot of people don't like the Marseillaise that much, I tend to find every now and again I do need to go to a Marseillaise. I need to kind of take out the noise that other decks give, all the images that they give that I normally love, but sometimes I need to just take out the noise and go back to basics and go back to a Marseillaise type deck. Now when I say type deck, there is quite a few other types of Marseillaise as well that are not really Marseillaise, but we'll throw them in there. This was my first ever deck of tarot cards, and it's a Marseillaise type deck. It's just like the Spanish tarot cards. I got this deck when I was 10 years old. I went on my own on a train to Barcelona without anybody knowing. I got on the train, got off the train, bought my first deck of tarot cards, and I've never looked back since. But they are a type of Marseillaise. And then, of course, for Marseillaise, I also have majors only. A lot of people like to use majors only, the Marseillaise. I have, for example, this one is a majors only deck, which is great when I just need that. I have this one, which was a gift, and it's unpublished deck, very, very special. And somebody did this by hand and gifted it to me. And then I have this amazing deck by Maluk, which is called Locura Mystica in Spanish. And hopefully he'll be doing it in English soon, the book that goes with this. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck of cards. And it's a kind of like a Marseillaise type deck. But I love the colouring on these cards. They just go back to basics. Go back to the little images on the tarot, and when you need something simple, this is that deck. So I love that. And then, of course, there's all kinds of Marseillaise type decks out there. You can find them anywhere. And even the basic Spanish deck are very similar. So Marseillaise has definitely won its place. Number 4 for me in my tarot collection. Number 3 is this amazing deck by Antonella Pladano, and it's a Los Caraballo deck, and it's 78 Doors Tarot, and I have used this deck so much. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I just love this deck. I fell in love with this deck a long time ago. That's a Lover's card. It's a very modern deck, and the idea behind this deck is that everything's kind of got a door or a key connected to it. So there's doors or keys, because we need doors or keys to go through life and all this. But basically, the images are very modern, and they're really easy to work with. Like, that's the Six of Swords, which is normally like the journey card, and here you can see him on the internet booking a holiday. So it's quite modern, very, very easy to use. You kind of look at the images. This deck is great for those lazy days when you want the cards to do all the work, and you might not be so, into it at that moment, or you've not got that much energy, or you just want a little bit of a stand back and let the cards work. This would be that deck. The Ten of Swords, amazing deck. I just love this deck of cards. Some people might think it's too modern, it's going far away from the tradition, but we need change. We need change. We don't want to just stick with one thing with the tarot. That's why I love the combination of, the Everyday Witch Tarot, the Scipini Tarot, and then you've got things like the Visconti Tarot, which is, the oldest decks in existence. So this kind of mix and match, especially if you're a full-time tarot reader like I am, you can't just use the same deck all the time because you get to the point of complete boredom. So having all these different inspirational decks to choose from is amazing, brilliant. That's why I got such a big collection. Some people only ever use one deck, and that's great too, but I just get bored to tears if I use the same deck all the time. So I've used this deck so many times. It's amazing. I love this deck of cards. The 78 Door Tarot, definitely worth it for your collection. Deck number 2 in my amazing collection of tarot cards is Julie Watts Ancestral Path Tarot. Now, Julie is an amazing artist. She's got other decks of cards like the Journey into Egypt deck. She's just a fantastic artist. This is a US Games deck. Now, there's 3 versions of this same deck. This is the original version. This is the original version. This is the next version. And the 3rd version that's come out now with US Games has got no borders. So US Games actually hears my prayers. And I asked US Games, please, 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 please take away those horrible borders. Please, please, please. And they did. So Julie's kind of updated the deck, got rid of the borders, made them slightly look bigger, and they're just an amazing deck, and that's on my wish list, and I will be getting that 3rd version very soon. But at the moment, I've got these 2. Now, I have used this deck of cards so many times over the years. Not only did I used to use this deck all the time, every day, every single day, I also used to teach with this deck of cards, and I just know this deck as if it was like I know this deck better than the back of my hand, actually. An amazing deck. It follows 4 cultures, and it's kind of traditional, but it's not. You can kind of work out every card, but at the same time, it's got layers upon layers upon layers. Look at that fill card. You don't normally see the fill card looking like that. You would see more the High Priestess with a deck of cards on the table. But when you get into this, you can see the layers and layers, and they make sense. All these cards tend to make sense at the end. I just love the deck. Look at that. Even the Tower card, the colours, the artist inspiration on them. And this deck has worked with me so well. I'm so emotionally connected with it because I've got so many good memories of amazing readings I've done from people all over the world with this deck of cards. I've got memories built upon memories with this deck of cards, and I don't use it as much now as I used to do. I think I kind of like got too much of it. I kind of, I got too drunk on it, and then afterwards you kind of need to move away from it. So I don't use it as much now as I used to do. It used to be my everyday tarot deck, and now it's just kind of like my occasional tarot deck because I got too close to it and I needed that change. I needed that break for me to be able to evolve. But it's still number 2 in my collection. And number 1 in my collection is the Rider-Waite Tarot. Now, the Rider-Waite Tarot is a tarot deck created by Pamela Smith, and the person behind the deck is Arthur White. Now, Pamela Smith was paid by Arthur White to do 78 card deck, and she did that deck. She was paid very little money for that deck, but she did it, and she's made this exceptional deck of tarot cards that 100 years later, well, over 100 years, she did them in 1909, I think it was. Yeah, 1909, 1910. So it's over 100 years. Even now, most modern tarot decks are based on this. So many people learn the tarot with the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. And these images are so well known. And I just love this deck of cards. Now, when I was working in the shop as a tarot reader, I used this deck. And as you can see, it's a bit like skanky now and a bit gone. That's the one I used. I've got loads of Rider-Waite tarot decks. Sometimes they're called Rider-Waite, sometimes they're called Waite-Smith, sometimes they're called Colin-Smith. I have this one. This is a Smith-Waite. And this is another US Games collection deck, and this one is No Borders because US Games does love me so much. And this one has got very like dull colours, kind of going back to the original type of colouring that we would have expected to see in the Pamela Colin-Smith deck anyway. A brilliant deck to learn with. I love this. And this Rider-Waite is basically the cards I use every single day. My best friend bought me this deck, which is the giant Rider-Waite, and I've even got the mini Rider-Waite. I've got so many Rider-Waites because they're just so easy to get. But this giant one, she bought me this in a tarot fair in Barcelona years ago, and it's brilliant because what I do with this deck is I use it for all my videos and for all my teachings because the cards are so big. They come across really well in videos and images and brilliant to teach with. But the deck that I use every day is the Radiant Rider-Waite. And this is by Virginius Pushkos. Could it be Virginius Pushkos? I think it is. It's a US Games deck, and it's the Rider-Waite deck, but it's radiant, and that means the box is a bit gone. The Radiant Rider-Waite basically just means that the colours are really alive, the colours are radiant, the colours are vibrant, and that's why I love this deck so much, because I'm a colour person. Some people aren't. Some people like the black and white decks or the dark decks. It depends on taste, but I love colours. I'm kind of a Samson girl. I love bright colours. I love the blues and the yellows in this deck of cards. Look at that blue with that red heart and the swords going through it. Absolutely love it. So this is the deck, it's my number 1 deck, the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot. Absolutely love this deck of cards. It's a brilliant deck to learn the tarot with. If you want to learn the tarot, go out and buy a Rider-Waite. And if you want, buy the Radiant Rider-Waite, and you'll have even more inspiration, even more colours, if you like that kind of thing. I mean, look at the dark black sky. You've got the yellow sun horizon, and then here you've got that bright red blanket. I just love the colours here. Looks like she's got the sea on her gown. The blues. And I wouldn't mind, but I've used this deck a lot, and I mean a lot, and it's still in really good condition. I mean, it's a bit dirty, obviously, because of the amount of uses it's had. But US Games always has brilliant quality cards anyway, as does Los Caraballo most of the time as well. And this deck has been used so much, and you wouldn't really notice it. You wouldn't notice it's brilliant card stock, and it's still very clean considering. But yeah, I love this deck. Some people have cut the horrible white borders off this deck, and it just looks phenomenal. It really looks amazing when they've cut the borders off. But I'm too much of a scary cat to do that, because I'm really bad at anything like that, and it would just come out really bad, and it wouldn't be straight, and I'd end up having a deck that I couldn't use. So I've not been able to do that, unfortunately. But if they ever brought out the borderless version of this, wow, that would be even more amazing. They're my top 10 decks. I hope you enjoy the video. I know it was a bit long, but obviously there's 10 decks I needed to talk about. The Rider-Waite is my number one deck. The Radiant Rider-Waite is the one that I'm using the most at the moment. I'm my number one for now. I hope you enjoy the video. If you like my channel, touch like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.